name doesn't matter anymore. I was just 19 when they sent me to the front. A boy, too young to drink back home, but old enough to kill apparently. They told us we were fighting for freedom, for our families, for glory. But no one told us about the whispers. No one told us about the things that crawled out of the mud at night. And if I don't tell you now, no one ever will. We were posted near Ypres, Belgium, a hellhole of mud, rats, and corpses. My battalion was about 80 men strong when I joined them. There was James, tall, funny, always telling jokes to keep spirits up. There was O'Connor, Irish, tough as nails, carried a rosary he kissed before every patrol. And there was Sergeant McBride, old enough to be my father, eyes like steel, voice like thunder. We weren't soldiers, we were a family, bound together by mud and fear. The first few weeks were nothing but waiting, shells overhead, the smell of rot in the trenches, rats as big as cats chewing on the bodies we couldn't bury. But then the whispers started. It began with the sentries. Men swore they heard voices calling from no man's land. Not in German, not in English, just voices. Sometimes it was the sound of their mothers. Other times a dead comrade. Sometimes it was their own voices calling back to them. Private Harris swore one night he heard his little sister calling from the wire, over and over. Come home, come home. He nearly climbed over when McBride tackled him down. He laughed it off at first, called it shell shock, fatigue, his nerves. But the truth is, I heard it too, clear as day. My name, soft, pleading from the darkness. And the night I nearly followed it, I saw them. Shapes moving in the mist, too tall to be men. Limbs wrong, faces hidden in the shadows. When the flares went up, they froze. For a heartbeat, I thought they were scarecrows, mud dripping off them like wet rags, eyes like embers in hollow sockets. And then the lights died. And so did Private Collins. We found him the next morning, half buried in mud, his face twisted as if he drowned on dry land. The Germans shelled us with mustard gas. We fumbled for masks, coughing and choking. Through the green haze, we saw figures moving. We thought it was the enemy advancing, but these weren't the Germans. Their skins were blistered, dripping, bodies twisted, melting as though the gas had birthed them out of the mud itself. One lunged into a trench, grabbed Corporal Davis, and dragged him screaming into the haze. We fired blindly, rifles crackling, bayonets stabbing. But when the gas cleared, there were no bodies, just drag marks leading into the earth itself. A week later, McBride ordered a night patrol into no man's land. 5 of us went. McBride, O'Connor, James, myself, and another young boy named Peters. He just turned 18. The land was a graveyard, bodies half buried in mud, arms reaching out of the ground like they'd been clawing for air. Then Peters whispered, "Do you guys hear that?" We all froze. It was humming, low, rhythmic, like a choir. We followed the sound, and found a crater. Inside were bodies, not fresh, not whole, but moving. Dozens of them, their mouths opening in unison, humming the same note. When one of them raised his head, I saw its face, half gone, skull bare, but its eyes rolled back and locked onto me. That's when we all ran. The creatures came again 2 nights later, not whispering, not watching, but to feed. They swarmed a German raid right before our eyes. Men screaming in 2 languages, bayonets useless, bullets doing nothing. We saw a man ripped apart from the waist, another dragged down into the earth to up to his chest before the mud covered him. All we could do was watch, because the moment we fired, those glowing eyes turned on us. The High Command ordered us to dig new tunnels, deep into the earth under enemy lines. We went deep down, dark, wet, air thin. But the deeper we dug, the more we found bones. Not fresh. They seemed old, ancient, carved with marks that weren't natural. Symbols scratched into skulls, jawbone split down the middle. And then we hit some kind of chamber. It wasn't German, and it definitely wasn't ours. It seemed older. Stone walls, black with soot, and in the center, something was waiting. I won't describe it. Words fail to. But I'll tell you this. Every man who looked at it came back different. McBride started laughing and shaking, muttering the Lord's Prayer backwards. James clawed his own eyes until blood poured down his face. And Peters never came back at all. When the Germans attacked again, we weren't fighting men anymore. The creatures came in the chaos, crawling out of shell craters, pouring from broken tunnels, dropping from the night sky like shadows made flesh. I saw O'Connor dragged screaming into the dark, his rosary beads scattered in the mud. I saw McBride laughing, bayoneting anything that moved. British, German, it didn't matter, until something pulled him off his feet and split him open like paper. And then James wasn't James anymore. His body stood, but his eyes glowed red. His mouth muttered the same low hum we'd hear in the crater. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Then he smiled, sending shivers down my spine. In the end, there were 5 of us left out of 80. 5. But I don't call us survivors. O'Connor's gone, but I still hear his voice in the rosary beads I carry. McBride's laughter echoes in my dreams, night after night. And James, sometimes when the light hits a man's face just right, I swear I see him, smiling at me from the crowd. I lived, but part of me, part of all of us, stayed in that mud, stayed in those chambers, in those craters with them. If you ever walk across those fields, Ypres, Verdun, listen more. Listen carefully, because the war never ended there. Not for them, not for us. And if you listen long enough, you'll hear the humming.